Welcome to the IRS Whisperer podcast. This podcast is designed for tax professionals with a spin toward IRS representation. My name is Dan Hem, and I'm a CPA CTR. New episodes will drop weekly on Thursdays. Each week we'll be giving you exciting material to help the tax pro in their tax practice. That's assuming you can say exciting and taxes in the same sentence. On the IRS Whisperer podcast, each episode will cover 3 different areas of a tax practice. We will present the marketing moment, which will cover various topics in marketing or sales to help you generate more clients and revenue in your business. The world of practice management will give you suggestions on how to better run your tax practice. We will also cover our technical time that will cover some of the latest changes or tips, tricks to help you in handling your IRS representation cases. So I'm so glad you are here and hope you enjoy the show. Now, on to today's episode. Hello and welcome to the IRS Whisperer podcast. This is Dan Hen, CPA CTR, and today I want to talk about a few different topics. One of them is taking retainers or getting paid. At the end of the day, one of the biggest things that you should be making sure that you don't have is accounts receivable. If you don't have accounts receivable, you don't have collections issues. Now, I found that collecting retainers has been one of the best things that I ever did. I collected a 50% retainer on tax preparation. I would do at least a 50% retainer on collections cases. So if I'm handling a representation case, then I typically take 50%, but always push to get it all up front, as much as you possibly can. Typically don't take payments when you're handling collections cases. Tax prep is okay to take payments. I always found that a good 50% retainer was good skin in the game, both for me and for them. This way they're not having to come out of pocket all of the money, but now I've got something from them that obviously within my engagement letters say we don't give refunds, especially if we've incurred the time in the effort. Now, when it comes to exam-related cases, I take a retainer, and I don't recommend you get anything less than $2,500, $3,000 to start with, probably closer to $5,000 or $6,000, depending on what your hourly billing rate is and how you deem involved the case is and the questions that are being asked up front. So the best thing to do is to get as much as you possibly can, and before you deliver any product, you always must get paid the other half of the money before you deliver. Because once you've delivered, then it's harder for you to collect the money. And now, are you going to get pushback on that? Yeah, you're going to get a little pushback. Here's what happened to me. I used to not take retainers, and I had a few people I had one guy that came to me and said, hey, I couldn't get a hold of my tax preparer in Ohio, and could you do my return? Sure. So we did the return. It was like pulling teeth, getting information from him. I had my staff person was handling a lot of that, but she would whine and complain about it all the time. And we worked, and finally we got the return done, delivered to him, and then crickets. And when we finally heard back from him, he's like, oh yeah, I finally got a hold of my person in Ohio and having her prepare the return. And it was one of those that if he was sitting right across the table from me, I would have smacked him. I mean, it was just that frustrating of a situation. So it was that at that point in time that I said, any new client that walks in the door is going to pay a 50% retainer. And to be honest with you, with the new people walking in the door, I never got pushback on that. Then finally, about 5 years into that, I said, hey, why don't I just do this on all my clients? So I ended up instituting a 50% retainer on all my clients. And I found that it was really interesting because I would easily say 98% of the 500 clients I had at the time, that most of them would pay it. We'd get, I think I had maybe 1 or 2 that whined about it. Actually, I had 2 that actually pitched a fit, and then they were apparently having a bad day and later came back and apologized for their fit. 1 whined about it that it was the, bad apples theory that one bad apple ruined it for everybody. That was the complaint. And I just sloughed it off and just kind of didn't even reply to that. But yet they stayed with me and they continued to pay their 50% retainer. So, and occasionally I probably had 2 or 3 good long-term clients. Yeah, the people that I knew well. And I always told my staff was go and get the retainer. You ask, and then if they, continue to push back, just let it go. Okay. So it was hey, I need to get a retainer. Oh, Dan knows me. That's the way they would say it. And they would say, oh, well, we have a new policy that we need to get that. And they would go, oh, Dan knows me. And then I would just say, let it go for there literally was maybe 2 or 3 clients that did that. And it wasn't a big deal for me. It wasn't, that much of a deal breaker, although please do what you can to try and apply it to everybody, because you are going to get clients that they're going to long-term clients that are going to stiff you. It's going to happen. So the more that you get up front, the more that you get paid before you deliver. So this is before they sign an 8879. This is before they see the return, before you deliver a 433 or give anything to the IRS in an exam or collections case. You always need to make sure that you get paid the other half of the money. On an exam case, you always need to make sure you have a positive retainer. It's hard to bill any other way other than hourly in regard to exam-related cases. And that goes for anything else. If you're preparing bookkeeping or payroll and you have setup fees, you get the setup fees, you get your first month, first quarter, first 6 months, that whatever your policy is. Remember, it's your practice. You control everything about it. So you need to make sure that you handle that and take care of that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to guide you through that process. The next thing I want to talk about is a shock and awe package. Shock and awe package is something, it's really a marketing concept that will help you with your overall practice. Now, what is a shock and awe package? It's basically, if you guys remember back in the day, those that are old enough to remember, when we had the first Persian Gulf War, we had those situations where they were going shock and awe is what they were saying. They were going in there just doing all kinds of bombs, missiles, and everything in there, and it was just this big overwhelming situation. Now, obviously, that was the situation in a negative perspective. Here, it's a positive thing. So if you have a book, if you have a special report, you have audio recordings, you have video of you being on TV, if you have audio being on a podcast or radio show or an interview, and obviously that's something you can do sometimes even yourself to create some of that. You've got special items, a money pad, a t-shirt, some special, things that you can have that you can do. Then that would be the best thing to have that. Now, if you can deliver it in a nice box, a FedEx box, a U.S. Postal Service box, then that would be the best thing that you could do to have a shock and awe package. And you send that with a nice cover letter, something that said it was a great time to talk to you. And the faster you can do that immediately after your call, then the better it's going to be. Thank you for listening to our show. We hope you received some valuable information to help you in your tax practice. The IRS Whisperer is sponsored by the Tax Resolution Academy. If you have any questions you'd like to see addressed on the show or comments to help us make it better, please reach out to us on social media. Follow us or download our shows on your favorite podcast app. Tune in to our next episode where we'll give you some more exciting information to help you grow your practice.